Meanwhile, South Jersey mob boss little Nicky Scarfo is currently serving a 55-year sentence in federal prison for a 1988 racketeering conviction.
Last week, Scarfo won a new trial in the murder of Frankie Flowers D'Alfonso, a trial that made Scarfo the first Don in the history of organized crime to be convicted of first-degree murder. But no matter what the outcome of the new trial, Scarfo is in prison on federal charges for life. Tonight, as John and I conclude our series, Disorganized Crime, we examine Scarfo's failed leadership style and explore who is controlling the South Jersey mob now.
He was certainly a killer without conscience, a killer without remorse.
Nicodemos Scarfo was the bloodiest mob boss since Al Capone, killing for reasons code of business. He murdered to intimidate and to calm his own paranoia over threats to his throne, such as his own capo, Salvatore Testa. During his reign, Scarfo ordered 24 mob hits. Authorities believe it was Little Nicky's bloodthirsty style that led to his downfall. When he turned on his own family members, they turned to the law.
Once his violence and his willingness to inflict punishment on his own members became well known, that certainly provided great encouragement for other members of his family when they were confronted by law enforcement of their own potential demise to be much more willing to give up their allegiance to Scarfo and to think of themselves.
Those familiar with organized crime believe Scarfo's violent leadership watered down the gene pool of the Philadelphia Atlantic City mob, leaving those capable of running the organization either dead or in the witness protection program.
The organization runs according to the skill and expertise of its members. The guy at the top very seldom gets involved in the mechanic work. And when you start to systematically eliminate the mechanics, then the whole organization begins to fall. It begins to crumble.
Scarfo brought his own downfall as a result of his management style. He was too greedy, he was too vicious.
The demise of the Scarfo crime family has now opened up the Philadelphia Atlantic City underworlds to the expanding interest of New York and Sicilian mafia kingpins. So who is controlling the Philadelphia Atlantic City mob? Who, if anyone, is operating for La Cosa Nostra in this casino resort of fast money? One name law enforcement officials toss around is Sicilian John Stanfa.
Now, John Stanfa is no stranger to organized crime officials. He first came to their attention back in March of 1980 when he drove then mob boss Angelo Bruno to his home here in the 900 block of Snyder Avenue in South Philadelphia. It was outside of his home as the two men sat conversing in the car that Angelo Bruno was brutally murdered. And some law enforcement officials say with Stanfa in control, with the backing of both the Sicilian Mafia and the American LCN, the sky is the limit.
He's in a position to build it up because he can bring Sicilians into that organization. He seems to have made peace with all the warring factions within the organization. He's a low-key individual. He's not a Scarfo type, and he's not violent prone. I think he's more of a businessman. I predict that that's going to become a more powerful family than when Scarfo had it.
Now, because of a heavy emphasis on narcotics, Dentino sees Stanfa shying away from Atlantic City, creating yet again an open territory.
Right now, we don't know. Atlantic City is basically up for grabs. I mean, people from New York and Philadelphia and everyone who has an interest in here will get their own piece of the pie if they can, and they'll do whatever they can to be able to control whatever portion of the city and of the industries and the money that's to be made.
For as long as people want narcotics, for as long as they want loan shark money, for as long as they want other types of illicit things, illegal gambling, there will be an organized enterprise that will provide those services.
The fall of Nicky Scarfo and Gambino crime boss John Gotti marked the end of what the head of the Pennsylvania Crime Commission called the mob's high-profile cowboys, but barely put a dent into the mob itself, a point echoed by many law enforcement officials.
To believe that the mob has been crippled beyond redemption is foolhardy indeed. Law enforcement has to certainly remain especially vigilant now to prevent the mob from reaching the position that it enjoyed going back into the early 80s, where it could literally kill with impunity.
And that seems to be the difference between organized crime of the 80s and today, the ability to corrupt the system.
Corruption was one of the cornerstones of the LCN, not only in Philadelphia but everywhere, and that particular facet of any of the other ethnic organizations just doesn't seem to be there at this point.
But whether organized or disorganized, there will always be criminal activity in Atlantic City.
Willie Sutton robbed banks because that's where the money is. Organized crime is going to be in the casinos because that's where the money is. And you're always going to have them here.
Now, as an illustration of the current openness of Atlantic City, indictments were recently handed down in New Jersey against several high-ranking members of the Genovese crime family out of New York.
Indictments which charge them with, among other crimes, attempting to secure the contracts for the construction of the new Atlantic City International Airport.
Well, still ahead on this.